Speaking of people, the Jews of Israel are actually divided into different factions, including secular, traditional Jews, and extremely Orthodox Jews. What they believe is also not the same. This extreme Orthodox Jew is called Haredi. From an economic standpoint, giving to Israel also incurs a significant cost, and it could potentially be a hazard in the future. Such Haredi, you can recognize them on the street at a glance. Men are dressed in black all year round, wearing a black hat, then black coat, black trousers, wear a white shirt. Their main task is to study Jewish classics. In theory, men can completely not work. Over half of the Haredi in Israel do not work, and it's tough to make ends meet. The women go to work to earn money while the men continue to study scriptures. Can you imagine that? Their economic situation must be very bad. More than half of the people live below the poverty line, and they even get exemptions or do not have to serve in the military because they have to study scriptures, right? And the key is the high status of the Haredi sect, from the perspective of faith among Jews, and the government also has difficulty managing. The government gives them $3 to $4 billion in aid every year. They specifically fund them to study scriptures, and these Haredi people are particularly fertile, just like the fertility rate we just mentioned in Israel. These Haredim are the main force. Their families typically have more than 5 children, so now the Haredi account for about 10% of Israel's population. It is estimated that this number could reach 25% in 50 years. Then there might be more people studying scriptures. So, pure economically speaking, the Haredi indeed bring a great burden to Israel, and there are often some conflicts between them and the secular populace, which are also very tricky problems. Alright, let's talk about a topic that can't be avoided when it comes to Israel, which is its wars and military, including American aid. This part is a bit sensitive, so let's discuss it based on some objective data. First of all, everyone must be curious about how much the Americans have helped Israel. We all know Israel is America's most confidential ally. This is the military and economic aid the United States has given to Israel in the past 70 years. For instance, during the 70s and 80s, when severe conflicts were happening, it was also a time of high inflation. The United States would give Israel over $16 billion in military aid each year. Not only military aid, but also the economy of Israel was not good at that time. So from 1975, the United States started to provide a large amount of economic aid to Israel. By 2000, Israel's economy had basically stabilized, so all that was left from the US was military aid, which is about $3 to $4 billion a year.
So after World War II,
all the aid added up. The United States has provided Israel with over $150 billion in aid, of course. Some say up to $200 billion. In any case, Israel is definitely the country that receives the most aid from the United States among all countries. So if you say Israel's success is all due to its own efforts and not reliant on the US, that's definitely impossible. But it's not to say that Israel goes to war and the US pays for it. Israel has indeed spent a lot of money. For example, in the year 2022, about 80% of American universities.
GDP
the United States is certainly more,
follows.
spending 3.5%. Half more than Israel. This number is 4.5%. Do you know how much Israel spent during the most intense times of the Middle East war in the 70s? Just one country using 30% of its output on war every year. Imagine how much this affects the economy. Then you can understand why there is inflation. Then this money must be printed or borrowed. His dialectical commitment, China's military aid, has indeed brought some benefits to Israel in the military field. For instance, when he started slowly developing his weapons, it turned into a business, and he started selling weapons all over the world. This is Israel's weapon exports, which were $2.5 billion in the year 2000. In 2020, it rose to $8.3 billion, and it surged in the last 2 years. In 2022, it even reached $12.5 billion. We won't get into the specifics of where Israel's military prowess lies, as it's not my strong suit. From the perspective of macroeconomics, what are the benefits of such a large weapons industry? Because it's big after all, over 10 billion of exports account for less than 10% of the total exports. The key is that this arms industry, the military industry, is a counter-cyclical industry. Think about this. The less peaceful the world is, the worse the economy gets. If there's a high probability of unrest, Israel will surely not be peaceful either, and its economy might collapse. But at the same time, during unrest, their arms industry may sell better, so this extremely counter-cyclical industry can help Israel hedge its huge economic riots caused by the political risks of counselors. For example, how are the weapons of Israel selling in the context of the recent 2-year Russo-European war, the oil crisis, and economic downturn? Of course, he has been fighting recently. That's another story. Anyway, the military industry may not have helped Israel as much as many people think, but it's not small either. Let me tell you, Israel's military is a major pillar of its high-tech industry. This shows a very unique department in its military called 826. Unit 8-200. You should know the intelligence department in Israel's military is world-renowned, and one of its main branches is this 8-200 unit. The information department, it probably does something similar to hackers, and you have to search for information in the worldwide internet. But how it digs for information is not what I think. The key thing I want to say is that these people in it, you think intelligence work can be considered as a country's top secret. During their service, the identities of these people were definitely extremely confidential. Their photos in the military had to be altered. But do you know, the key personnel in this unit, Basically, they are youngsters around 18 to 21 years old. This team seems to be about a few thousand people. It's a system like a revolving door where everyone goes in for a few years and then comes out. So it has slowly formed a very strict and comprehensive selection process. Basically, it is among the high school students nationwide who go through that kind of annual or semi-annual test.
Go to the batch of
Most notable
cards
ones come
that
out.
are screened.
Of course, it has to be the Jewish people, and they even have a mechanism to identify and secure some particularly outstanding talents in advance. It's about finding some potential people around the age of 14 or 15 and providing them with a special 3-year training in programming or some basic knowledge of hackers. Think about it. This elite 8200 unit, for retired alumni, there could be tens of thousands of these people with high IQs. They also received militarized management and training, forming a very cohesive group. These people have a very high status in the tech world. And imagine when they retire in their early 20s, they will become the elites in various fields. A large group of them will stand out. So don't look at them, although there are not many people. But the established ones are all very powerful technology companies, such as the famous ones like the one we just mentioned that was bought by Google. There is also a very famous website company called, this is listed on NASDAQ. Its founder is also 8200. In short, this Unit 8200 is not just a simple intelligence department, it has also become a mechanism for talent selection and training in Israel.
Please don't hesitate to like, subscribe, share, and financially support.
Actually, we have analyzed a lot of economy and data in the news today. What you might see is who beats who, and who allies with who. It feels like a match. It's a game of truth and pretense, but when you're searching for information, you can see a lot of on-the-spot videos, interviews, and photos. You can really see their helplessness in their words and eyes. There's also helplessness, and even hatred. It's really an unspeakable discomfort. You can understand that both sides indeed harbor deep hatred, but for many of those innocent civilians, I can only hope that peace will come soon.
To like, subscribe, share, and reward to support Mingjing and Diane Diane programs.